So I want to welcome you and have you come on in and have a seat if you're just making your way into class right now. Before I go ahead and introduce today's guest presenter, I would like to just talk to you for a minute because this is the last time that we meet this semester. And I also want to make sure that you all know that you can contact me, even though we aren't meeting again next week, with any questions you have. Please log into Canvas. Some students' email is not set up properly to send out forwarding out the information from Canvas, but this morning I uploaded your grades in a easy to read format in Canvas. Do not rely on the grade book in Canvas for this particular class because of the way it's graded. It is not, your scores are accurate, but if you're just looking at the my grade column, the last column in Canvas, that is not accurate. You need to, in fact, you might be pleasantly surprised at your grade. Hopefully it's a pleasant surprise and you're not unpleasantly surprised. But open the attachment that I emailed to you this morning. The one that went last night is not correct. Open the one from this morning. Find your grade in there. Make sure everything looks accurate. Do not wait to do that, because if you do wait to do that, it'll be too late for me to address any challenges or concerns that you might have. Also, those of you who are a little worried about your grade should probably elect to do the extra credit item that is going to be posted in Canvas. And that will help quite a bit. It's a review of Steve Jobs, his life, and some learning points that you'll gain from that. And the last item that I wanted to mention is, could I have our guests from Manti High School's Business Club stand up for a moment? See that we have a few visitors. We acknowledge them. Appreciate you coming. We always welcome guests. I see several other guests from the community and a few students that are not enrolled in the class but wanted to come when they read who is going to be here today, so that's a compliment to you. And I would like to introduce Mr. Dell Lewis. He's a serial entrepreneur and he's proud of it. He graduated with a bachelor's of marketing and used what he learned in industry, working for companies you've heard of, like Frito-Lay Corporation and Nabisco Corporation. And then one you may not have heard of, Cynamid. Am I pronouncing it? Cyanamid? Cyanamid. As you can tell, I'm not familiar with Cyanamid, but I am familiar with their products. If you remember Breck shampoo or Old Spice cologne, maybe, I'm not sure, but one of the country's largest or most recognized manufacturing company, one of the nation's top manufacturing companies, I should say. He learned some of his lessons not only through success but also through failure, and he may share a little bit about that today. He owns and operates Diamond D Land, a commercial and residential rental property business, and also CUS, an agricultural ranch and cattle operation, as well as Timberline Range Camps. Many of you that travel Highway 89 may have seen that on the west side of the highway near Mount Pleasant. They manufacture and distribute camping trailers for sheep camps and other uses. And his newest venture is AERIS, a manufacturer of revolutionary extreme weather clothing. He lives in Spring City with his wife Karen, and I saw her here a minute ago. I was going to acknowledge that as she went, oh, she's here, raising her hand right there. Thank you for being here, Karen. And they have 8 children and 1 granddaughter. With that, Dale, turn the time to you.
You might want to hold your applause till after, because it may not be any good. I've been to a couple of these because Alan's invited me. We're in the process of looking for venture capital, and it's kind of fun to be in a classroom again. What I found when I visited, sometimes it seemed like it was way over your head, and at least it would have when I was in college. So I've kind of planned something that I hope you can use today and then plan for the future. I'd like to start off with, though, grabbing the little Z-Bob thing. And I love capitalism. And I think too often we get confused in society today because there's a mixed message. Socialism, communism, and all the other isms. Is there anybody here who doesn't think they're a capitalist? I'm not going to fry you. Just show of hand. I'm not really a capitalist. Could I have a volunteer who could pretend like they're not a capitalist? Good, come on up. So I did this once. I had a friend who said, no, I believe in socialism. And the difference I find oftentimes is that socialism and communism actually are both political and economic structures, and capitalism is only an economic system, and everybody in the world is a capitalist. They may be bad capitalists, stupid capitalists, great capitalists, philanthropic capitalists, or capitalists in denial. Do you have a wallet?
I have a wife's wallet.
Does it have money in it?
It does.
All right. I'm going to take it.
All right.
Okay, so the analogy with my friend went like this. He said he wasn't a capitalist, so I took his cash, and I'm not going to really take all your credit cards, and all of his credit cards and said, there, now you're not a capitalist because you have no capital to work with. But once I give $1 to you, you are now a capitalist. You're going to purchase with that dollar to your best interest. In Madagascar, they sell cigarettes not by the pack, but by the piece. People go to the cigarette stand, they buy 3 cigarettes. We would never think of that, would we? It just doesn't even register. But everybody has self-will, and your self-will determines what you'll do with your capitalist. So once you have, thanks. So once you have any money, that was supposed to be up there, you're a capitalist. And businesses and individuals all follow the laws of capitalism. So you can try to break the laws, but you'll fail. I'm going to tell you my life story, which you may think, well, great, that's boring. But I'm going to tell you, because I think if you look at your own life, this is how you're going to become an entrepreneur or business owner, or I like to call it a wealth creator, because that's what you do. Keys to success, first off, everybody knows this is work, work, work. My first job, I mowed lawns. We got so good at it, we actually hired other kids to work for us. This was before there were lawn care businesses. If you've been in Salt Lake, you know Van Winkle Expressway. I used to work for Mr. Van Winkle. He used to pay us in so weird of increments, and what he was doing was teaching us. I used to make, to begin with, like $2.35 an hour. I'm that old. And you'd work 4 hours and 12 minutes, and he would make you figure out how much he owed you, Mr. Van Winkle. I had a teacher in high school, Mr. Darrell High, and he was awesome. He taught investments. And he made us all do this. I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. Every day we'd walk into class, and he would say, okay, here's your exercise. Write this down. Everybody got a pen? You have to have a pen to do this, or it's rhetorical. So write these words down. By the time I'm blank, you fill in the blank, I'll be a millionaire. Go ahead. You're supposed to actually write this down. Now, the reason he did that was a goal unwritten is a wish. And he said, I think everyone in this room should be a millionaire. And if you write it down, I think you will be one day. And I wrote it down. So one day, my brother got a job with the UDOT, and he was a flagger. And in those days, he was making $8 an hour. And I remember thinking, wow, that's awesome. But I can't get a job there. I'm too young. And I figured out if I started in sales, maybe I could beat his $8 an hour. And I started selling vacuums door to door. Now, when you say door to door, does that just resonate with, wow, there's a guy on a pedestal, door to door sales? No, it doesn't. But I figured one day I'd be able to look back and say, I started at the bottom. And I kind of did. But I made more money than my brother that summer selling Kirby vacuums. And they were a great product. I then did a retail gig, and I tell you these things because after a while you figure out what you like to do. When you're in college, high school, you should try a lot of things. See what it is you like. And when you do that, look at areas of that business that stink. Now, the thing I hated about the clothing sales was I could do nothing other than just sit and wait for them to come to me. Drove me freaking nuts. I was like, are you kidding me? I got to sit here and do nothing? Now, some of you may be lazy, and I guess you can be lazy, but I could never live in that kind of environment. Went on a mission, came back. Then I did this wonderful thing. I did door-to-door sales. I figured, hey, I can sell religion, quote unquote. I can sell insulation. Went to California. They had what's called the ZIP program, Zero Interest Financing Program, from PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric. And we sold insulation door to door. It was awesome. I paid for college in 18 months by knocking doors. Then I went to Costco. There were 3 Costcos in the world. Now, normally the speakers that I've heard speak to you never tell you how dumb they are, but I finished with a degree in marketing and applied at Costco to work in their marketing department, and they made me an offer, and I looked at it and I was like, I still don't get your business model. You go and talk to credit unions and businesses to become members? No thanks. Now my friend who's a warehouse manager there, he has stock options. The guy's, that was 1983. He did very well. Anyway, my purpose in telling you all that background was try different things. See what you like, because most businesses are developed from that. So it was 1985. I don't know if you know that, most of you. Anyone born then? I don't even know how old you are. So I go to work for Nabisco Candy. I'm at the University of Utah, and this is what we sold. Baby Ruth, Butterfingers, Lifesavers. I'm going to go ahead and pass those around because, hey, you came to class, right? And it's interesting because go ahead and pass those around. What was interesting to me was as you get kind of a broader look at the world, you pretty much all of a sudden figure out everything is sold by someone. Whether it's candy or Lifesavers. We introduced a new product, Good Stuff. Who loves Good Stuff? Liar. It died 6 months into the, it never made it. I mean, we introduced it, it flopped. Now the thing that I learned here was, I'd been out of college, the sales team was 9 guys, our district manager hired us, and no one in the Utah region had ever sold an account on putting a Nabisco rack program in. You don't know this, but when you walk into a convenience store, companies pay money to have certain places in a convenience store. Like on the countertop, that is prime position. M&M Mars, they're always number 1. Wrigley Gum, always number 1. Well, you could just assume, well, you'll never beat them out. But I went to Rainbow Oil and we offered them a rack program that if they took and gave us number 1 position with Butterfingers and Babe Ruth, which was like number 8 and number 13 on the SKUs as far as top sellers, if they'd let us do that, we would reinstall new racks. And my 9th month in employment with Nabisco, they did that. And so the book Good to Great talks about BHAGs, big, hairy, awesome goals. Well, I set a goal. We're going to have a rack program. It had never happened in Utah before. My boss quit. He went to FritoLay, and of his 9 sales reps, he only brought 1 with him, me. So I moved to FritoLay. Now, who doesn't love FritoLay? Seriously, everybody loves FritoLays. You got Lays and Ruffles. We're going to talk a second about the 4 P's of marketing: product, price, promotion, placement, which placement's the dumbest word, and we'll get to that in a second. But product, you know what is intriguing to me is product can be defined in so many ways. For instance, Doritos, what are they? They're corn chips, right? So that's a product, right? No, because you got Cool Ranch. What other flavors do you have? Nacho, corn. And they just came out with a new one. You vote. Go online and vote. It was like jalapeno Mexican taco and some other. That's a totally different product. And when you go as a sales rep to the grocery stores, you actually review with the store manager, hey, we deserve this space. Frito-Lay, on average, has 90% of the chip aisle. Go and look at a store. You'll see that. And really, they should have 100% because the other brands are pretty much there just to keep Frito honest. It was a great, great experience. My district manager at Nabisco loved me. My region manager, well, he loved me. And then we had our divisional manager, Dan Kennedy. I probably shouldn't say that. Hi, Dan. This is being streamed live. And he and I butted heads. And life stunk. He asked me to get rid of one of our employees who had been with the company like 29 years. And this guy who was the new DM, he came in and he'd been with us like 6 months. It's like, how do you get rid of Dick Johnson and you've been in, you could always find something wrong. Anyway, what I learned from Frito-Lay was two things. One, company politics stink. Two, I can't remember what two was, so we'll skip on. There's so much to do. Anyway, headhunters called. I did quite well in the corporate world, and I went to a company called American Cynamid. The division I worked for was called Schulten, and we sold these ancient brands, Old Spice deodorant. Does anybody remember Old Spice when you could take your fingers and dip it in a paste? Legit, I'm serious. Ladies' Choice. Breck was actually started in 1930. I started looking at all the different Breck girls online, and it was like, and started thinking of all these ladies. I can't remember their names off the hand because I'm doing this presentation, but I thought if I said any of them, none of you would know them. Like Kim Basinger was one. Anybody know her? The old people in the room do. But most actresses started as Breck girls. Well, anyway, Breck was a dying, most of these were dying brands. Old Spice was totally dead, and we got sold to Procter & Gamble. And Procter & Gamble let everyone go, except for a black pregnant woman. And I'm sure it was her skill set, not the potential lawsuit for firing her. Interesting. What was weird to me when you read Covey's book about those 7 things, is that he talks about having your ladder up against the wrong wall. And that was an example of that. I was climbing the corporate ladder, and all of a sudden, Procter & Gamble buys us, lets everybody go. And it was at that point it dawned on me. You never really have control unless you have control. So I thought, well, we did a quality of life move to the country. Don't skip ahead, but you will anyway. So we moved to the country and decided we'd start our own business. And I had a degree in marketing. I'd been making good money and decided to do marketing plans. And I'd worked with a group who had done them. And they charged $10,000 per business plan. Not the whole business plan, just the marketing leg of that. And I put that together. I worked for them for about 6 months and thought, man, we are totally ripping people off. Because I was coming up with marketing plans that to me were just, duh. Hello, do a direct flyer. In today's world, it'd be like, get a website. That's how basic it seemed to me. But in fact, every company that used these business plans, their marketing took off. Sales doubled, tripled. I mean, it was like easy, shooting fish in a bucket. It was seriously. And I thought, well, I should go do this on my own. But instead of doing it and really making it go, I thought, well, I'm going to give a discount. So I started consulting, and I charged $2,000 to $3,000. And that business failed. And the reason why is I didn't charge enough money. I didn't value my own abilities and knowledge. And when you think about it, if you were to ask me today to join in any of your business ventures, I'd say, okay, I need $10,000 up front because otherwise you're not serious. And I want 10% of the growth from where you're at today. If you had a $10 million company, if we grow to 20, I get 10% of the growth. I just think that's fair. If I don't, of course, if it doesn't grow, then you're not out anything. The second business idea was Mountain Fresh Aire Fresheners. And when I saw these, I was approached by some people to market these. I thought, this is awesome. Because from a marketing standpoint, this is a little billboard hanging from the rearview mirror. Is that not cool? Not only that, but you get 2 senses that you can attack your customer with or encourage your customer, build rapport with your customer. How many products can you look at and also smell? You know, when you smell vanilla, do you remember sitting in the car with your grandma or, some warm fuzzy? So we went to different businesses and sold these as fundraisers to high schools. We sold them to like Jones Payton glass, so every time a windshield was replaced. What I learned from that business was it's not really good to have partners. And the reason why is I went and did all the research on how to do it, and by research I mean I went and sold it, and we found a couple really good niches that we could penetrate. And I was doing this full time. Once that was successful, the 2 partners quit their full-time jobs and let me go. And I was like, well, I didn't think we could do that, but that one kind of stunk. T-shirt pros. Now, I tell you this because you look at it, and normally you say, you try once, you fail, you try a second time, you fail, but the third one's a charm, right? Not the case. So we did T-shirt pros, and T-shirt pros was just a silk screening business. And we did all right. I used to like to, I did it in our milk barn. I'd rock out to Bryan Adams. You probably never heard of him. And, you'd do a T-shirt order till 3 in the morning and make sure you were done, and you'd get done on time. But the reason that failed was demographically there wasn't a large enough population base. That's why, and if you think about it, another analogy is that's why so many restaurants go out of business. There's just not a large enough population base to support that. This brings me to my marketing 101. And I think any good entrepreneur, you look at a lot, not all, but most good companies, they're led by somebody in either sales or marketing. And with that, the reason why is typically if you have somebody who's from accounting, they're going to fire all the salespeople. But when, who was it who was here from Mikado? Alan Hall. When Alan Hall was here, do you remember one of his points was sales, sales, sales? Because sales can cover a myriad of sins. Really can. So when you look at what you have and your business idea, you have to identify what is our product? What actually is our product? What makes it up? Is it the size? When I looked at how P&G redefined Old Spice used to be, the advertising campaign was basically a guy going from port to port and being a womanizer. That was their whole ad campaign. And it was an ugly package. These are great packages. They have good names, like this one's After Hours. You have Fresh Scent or Sport. You have all those different names. So those are all different composites of the product. Too often we focus on price, but you have to know your price. And I just came back this morning. I was up at Sundance and yesterday at a convention. And we're basically drilling down on how to price your product. And it was interesting to me. The best example, there was a software programming company. They had a product that was going to replace a paper database and some other factors. They were going to sell it for $10,000 one-time fee. They went into a customer. They figured out that this customer was spending $125,000 a month in paper alone, let alone all of the other aspects of their business. And they redefined their pricing to be $35,000 a month licensing fee. Can you imagine if they'd actually gone to market with a $10,000 one-time fee versus a $35,000 per month licensing fee? Promotion, I won't go into that. Everything from advertising to PR. Word of mouth, guerrilla marketing. If you've never seen that book, buy it, read it. If you haven't ever tried guerrilla marketing, it's the best way for an entrepreneur to start. Placement is the one P that doesn't fit. It really should be a D. It's distribution. How do you get your product to market? How do you get it down the food chain, as they call it, from manufacturer to distributor to wholesaler to retailer to the end user? I was at the University of Utah. I can't remember if I put this in here. Probably not, because we didn't want to, I didn't want to get in trouble. So I'm going to tell you it. Roy T. Shaw, University of Utah, marketing like 351. Former football player, had those arms that shook down here, and he's from Texas. And I'll just role play with you now. Okay, we're talking distribution today, and he had this great Texas accent. He goes, why don't you all take out your pens, write down this word, W. You're not writing. W, H. This is how he did it. You're like, okay, we're not that stupid. H, O, R, E. He says, now you need to decide as a company how you're going to sell your product. What channels of distribution? Are you going to be manufacturer to end user, like on the internet, manufacturer to retailer to end user, or are you going to sell through distribution through a wholesaler to a retailer to the end? He says, if you do all of them, just go ahead and put that right there. You're a whore. He says, and you'll kill your own business because you haven't identified your channels of distribution. I didn't learn a lot in college, but I did remember a few things. And it's amazing the delivery, how that one thing really stuck in my mind. Anyway, so we were poor. And has anybody heard of PAWGS? Okay, the old people. Your older brothers and sisters used to play with PAWGS. I was at a trade show trying to sell T-shirts, and we ran into this kids game. It was Hawaiian milk caps. You would trade them, or you would play for them. You had a metal slammer. You'd throw it down, and if it flipped so many, you'd win them. And it was a craze. It went wild. And here's what's weird. I went back to who I used to sell chips and candy to. Candy and tobacco jobbers. That's the channel. That's the wholesaler that a manufacturer sells to, who sells to the convenience stores, who sells to the end user. So we got these PAWGS, and we thought we can make this go. And we went and sold PAWGS through the grocery and C-store distribution channel. We did about $1 million to, in 9 months, top line revenue. Would you consider that a success? Yeah, barely got us out of the hole. But it reinvented the idea. And then one day so I kind of fell back into the t-shirt thing after that happened, and we weren't living hand to mouth per se anymore. And a guy walked in one day and he goes, and I don't know why everybody's from Texas, but Terry was from Texas, and he goes, Dale, Karen, it's true, that's how he talked, isn't it? Dale, I'll give you half any profit I make if you can tell me how to sell one of these here phone cards. And I'm like, what's a phone card? This is 1995. It was a Sprint phone card. It cost 50 cents a minute to call. I know you guys can't even believe that. That's the truth. And I was like, who would buy a prepaid phone card? I mean, why not just pick up the phone and dial 1+? And he goes, well, you got them there credit challenged folks. Oh, okay, so they turned the long distance off at their house. He says you got a lot of immigrants and migrants who need a pay phone, got to call home. And I thought, I think I know how to sell these. So I looked at a different phone card, and on the back it said, Network Services, JD Services, distributed by GAN Distributing. So what did that tell you? Who the distributor was. So do I want to call the distributor, or do I want to call the network service provider? Don't whisper, just say it. You can be wrong. There's only two choices. Who? No. See, because if I call the distributor, he's buying from the network service provider, and I'm going to get it with his margin built in. So I thought, well, I don't know if these guys are local or not, but we could try it. So we called information, and it was JD Services at 6:30 at night, and Jerry Ricks answered the phone. I'm like, hey, I see this phone card. I'm wondering, how would you become a distributor? We do that all the time. You come on up, we can get you set up. I'm like, really? Cool. Went up, and within a year and a half, built that to about a $1.5 million enterprise. And we did that by selling through the same channels. Now, what's weird about that is, with the POGs, I had to learn how to put the product in front of the customer without it growing feet and walking away, right? So we put these, I got in touch with an old high school friend at Zeit Manufacturing. They make these counter unit displays that you can lock. What do you think we did with phone cards in the beginning? Exact same thing. Number one location, right on the countertop at a C-store. Now that, one day, merged into a long-distance company. It's a long story. I'm going to go short here, but when I looked at the opportunity, I was approached to merge our business, my business, with the ILEC in the area, the local exchange carrier, which at the time was Central Utah Telephone. They had a deregulated arm that sold internet, and they had 16 subscribers to this thing called the internet. I know I look old, but it's only like, what, 15 years ago? And they sold in-area long distance and custom calling features. Well, it was working well. Everything was going along good. I now was managing this whole kind of world. And one day we had an outage where our long distance provider to all of Manti, Moroni, Mount Pleasant, Fairview, Fountain Green, the circuit went down. Now, do you think that if you can't make a long distance call, there aren't cell phones, by the way. No, there were. They're just car phones. Do you think anybody would get upset if they couldn't pick up the phone and dial? Yeah. And now that happens periodically. And it went on for about an hour. And then it went on for about 3 hours. And then it went on for a day. And then it went on for a week. And then it went on for 6 weeks. How many customers do you think we had after that 6-week period? We still, for some reason, had 10% of our original base. And it was at that point we decided, you know, the guys we're buying from, They buy from MCI, WorldCom, Global Crossing, Sprint, AT&T. Why don't we do that? And actually, we don't even have to be great. We could just be good and compete with the people we're buying from. So we started doing that and developed a company. Originally, it's called Western Rural Long Distance. We thought if we just go west of the Mississippi, well, that'd be a pretty good business. Well, pretty soon, people east of the Mississippi found out about it, and then down in Louisiana and Ohio and Germantown, New York. And by the time we were done, after 9 years, we had 330 customers, coast to coast, border to border. If you've ever been to Circle, Montana, you know you can check it off your bucket list. And the one thing I found that made us successful, and when you talk about businesses, when you start your own business, need to identify what are your core competencies. And a lot of people say, well, we got this great product, but products are different. You kind of have to look at what you do well. What we found that we did well, and what we tried to instill in all of our customer service employees, all of our salespeople, accounting, everybody, was that our customer is the person who actually paid the bills. Our customers were the ones who actually wrote the check out and handed it to you. So when a customer says, hey, Janet, can you, and then ask her to do something, all she was really saying was, I'll give you money if you'll help me. And if you always, I love the word help. It's an awesome word. If you're helping your customers, you can't go wrong. It's very, very difficult to go wrong. You got to, of course, make a profit. And here's the thing. Again, back to capitalism. You're supposed to make a profit. You will kill yourself, you'll kill your families, you'll kill all the other employees if you don't. Is that a good thing? Somehow profit's been identified as this horrible, horrible thing. It's a wonderful thing. We sold that in 2006, and I had an offer to sell for more, but the other offer was a little less, and all of my employees got to keep. Now, that was awesome because I had awesome friends who helped build that business. And so you'll want to make sure that as you grow in your wealth, you remember that wealth is equivalent to giving. And you need to have that wealth mentality, that abundance mentality. Otherwise, you will fail. Whether it's initially or down the road. And also, just so you know, the company was Zone. When they bought us, we were about 35 million. They grew it to over 70. When I talked to the main shareholder of Ekong, they're based out of Hong Kong, he says that was one of the best acquisitions. Well, it was the best acquisition they did in the U.S. And that's a win-win. So it was good for me and it was good for them. So today, we don't have time, so I'm going to make it fast. We have a farm. We do some rental properties. Timberline Range Camp is a fun business. It's interesting to me that how you define the product can sometimes be what stops you. So originally, all we thought was we're going to sell sheep camps. We said, you know what? These are the best RVs. We could sell these to sportsmen. They're warm in the winter. They're cool in the summer. They can go anywhere. You can drive down the road and get in a wreck and just stand them back up, whereas a normal RV, it's pretty much toothpicks. So they're just quality made. So we started selling to sportsmen. There's a real niche with preppers, people who feel like our economy is going to collapse and everything else, and they are buying these in order to have something that they own free and clear. Kind of like during the Great Depression of the 30s, people used to live in their Model Ts, their automobiles. This would be the equivalent of a futuristic mindset. So we sell to that niche. And then one day we're at for this other business I'm going to share with you quickly. I was at a trade show. A guy in the oil and gas industry is in the booth next to me, and he sells cables. When I think of cables, and he sells cables for oil and gas. Anyway, he saw, somehow we got talking, I told him about this business. He's like, we could sell those. I'm like, who's we? I didn't know if he meant him personally, up in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, or he goes, no, I think our business could sell these. Well, come to find out, we took it up to their branch office, their headquarters, not their headquarters, but their regional headquarters, and showed them a sheep camp. And when they walked in and sat, after we'd done the sales pitch, they're like, yeah, whatever. They went out and they sat down and they're like, dude, this is a dog house. okay, is that good or bad? No, no, no. Every well where they're actually drilling a well, they have, typically it's a snowmobile trailer that's chintzy, and they throw a propane heater in it, some cots, and maybe some trunks, and then they just beat it all up to heck and throw it away. He says, this is the perfect doghouse. So a crew can come to work, they can change clothes, go on job, the crew coming off. He says, this would be awesome. We just sold our first doghouse last month. So my approach, hopefully you've caught it so far, is to say, for you, as you're sitting here, you're thinking, okay, I've got this class. You are interested. You obviously took an entrepreneurial class for a reason. What I found was, I know so many people who right out of college or right out of high school wanted to go start their own business. But they didn't have a foundation to build on. That's why I don't think I could have written my life story better, because I got some great corporate experience, and I learned some good things, and I also learned some really dumb things that take place. And I made decisions when I have the opportunity, this is how I'm going to do it. And the best place to find ideas to start your own business is when you're working. Work is a marvelous thing. So, today what I spend 60 hours a week doing is a line of cold weather clothing. Now, it's basically ugly underwear. I thought I had an extra large. I was going to try it on. Alan? So, the way this happened was, my son works for Halliburton on a frac crew. This is one way I like to tell the story. And he got to become the guinea pig because he was wearing 6 layers of clothing. He was wearing underwear, thermal underwear, long sleeve tee, hoodie, insulated coveralls, and a parka, and he would still cab up 15 out of every 30. Anybody know what cab up means? Either did I. You sit in the cab of a semi and get warm. And when I heard that, I was like, because my mind always, are you freaking kidding me? How does a business owner bid a job when he can't identify his labor costs? How do you do that? How do you say, well, I think it's going to take an hour to mow that lawn, and come to find out it's a 4-hour job and you're losing money every time you mow the lawn, right? How does an oil company have their guys sit on their backside for 50% of the time in the cold weather? So I'm thinking to myself, hey, there's some pain. In the business world, pain means opportunity, right? So we looked at this opportunity and came up with this line. Now, what's weird about it is we've fallen on our face, we've ran into the wall, we've fallen backwards. I have no background in the garment industry, the apparel industry. But what I did know was this product worked. It keeps you warm. This product, when he puts the balaclava on, with one single layer, typically because it's underwear, that's where I'm getting this. This is underwear. This is a mid-layer garment. Kind of like after the Climb snowmobile model where you get your base layer, your mid-layer garment, and the outer shell. This is a mid-layer garment. But that mid-layer garment is comfortable from minus 30 below zero to 70. Go ahead and sit down, keep wearing it. And unzip that a little. No, right here, the bottom zipper. So it's kind of got a little rigid thing, but now it doesn't ride up on you. So stand back up. I'll give you some of the things we had to figure out. So some of the things we had to figure out was it bunched up in your arms. So now this has articulated elbows. So when you bend your arms, if you don't have a body inside of it, it actually looks like it's on a mannequin. See how the arms naturally have a bend? There's gussets in the armpits. Do you feel your armpits? There's no material here. Do you ever get cold in your armpits? But your arm will fall asleep if it's... Maybe he gets cold in his armpits. I don't know. It's got slits on the side because it's a little rigid, but really not that rigid. So, but it makes it so when you sit down, you're comfortable. Anyway, go ahead. So my son went from wearing 6 layers to wearing basic underwear, this, and summer uninsulated coveralls. Now the value proposition, on my computer. We have their computer, and I didn't stick it on there. So our value proposition to business is that it's not an expense to buy our material. Would somebody like to try these, by the way? I want somebody who's willing to throw a balaclava on. Man, no, you already did one thing. Somebody else has got to man up. Come on. There you go. Here, put it on. Now, the only reason I want you to do it, a lady to try these manly gloves. You want to try those? What's weird about it is it's like a second layer of skin, and it adapts. It literally, I've got a son-in-law here. He snowmobiles in it. Do you ever overheat with AERIS? No. What's amazing is you can sweat to death, and normally you'd hurry and unzip and unbundle and stuff, but with this, it just breathes and lets it out. On our website, www.airisinside.com, I see all of you writing that. I'll say it again, www.aeris, A-E-R-I-S, inside.com. We actually could never get the product to fail, so we follow the nail it then scale it model, which you've heard the book. If you haven't read it, shame on you. It's the Bible of entrepreneurship. Did I say it wrong? Nail it, then scale it. When you do that, so we went ahead and did the nail it and scale it model and said, all right, we're going to find out what's wrong with this before we sell it. We went up to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, and met with a couple small companies like British Petroleum, Parker Drilling, Peak Oil, CH2M Hill, and said, try this and tell us what we should change to make it better. We did that. They came back. They're the ones who helped us kind of identify some cool things. And then they said, when can we buy it? We've never been this comfortable. And that's the word we keep hearing, is comfortable, not warm, because you're just comfortable, whether it's hot or cold. So the pain is productivity. The value proposition is when you buy that, it pays for itself. It's just like a backhoe. If you're a contractor and you're digging holes, do you want to hire 20 sorority girls with a shovel, or do you want to hire one backhoe? Same sort of value proposition. Do you invest in warm weather clothing that cold weather clothing that keeps you warm, and invest once? The ROI typically on our product is 21 days. So it's not an expense, it's actually an investment. And I couldn't do the video. I tried. So these are the few things I've learned, and then I would say if you can, learn them without having to bash your head against the wall. Finish school, and when you're here, actually learn. Don't try to get A's. Well, get A's, but get A's because you know the material. Get good work experience. I have a friend who he is in the medical field, and in his field he saw a need, there was pain, and now he's got a patent pending on technology that he should be very wealthy in a little while. Read a lot. If you haven't read How to Win Friends and Influence People, you're probably not as friendly as you could be. Read that book. Nail it, then scale it. There's a great book out, Entrepreneur USA. It's by Rob Ryan. He sold Ascend Communication for $24 billion. That's a B. Then learn to sell. Here's what I find interesting is, so many times we don't think, well, I'm not in sales. Every one of you is selling right now. And I have this discussion with old people like myself all the time. I can't figure out how anybody can get up, go anywhere without showering. They go to wherever, school, work, with bedhead. What is the message you're selling? Either, I don't know how to go to bed on time, I have no control, I can't get up. So who wants to marry that guy or girl? I'm sorry, this is just one of my pet peeves. I'll move on. But seriously, you're selling yourself in everything you do. Whether you're happy or if you're always, well, I hate this and I hate that. Do you ever meet negative people and go, get rid of the sour puss attitude? My gosh. Okay. Be honest and be honest. I didn't think I'd do this. Sorry. So, I am such a wuss. I always cry. And my wife bet me I wouldn't cry. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. This is the last page, and here I am doing it. I have had people come up to me and say, we don't need a contract. I'll just shake your hand. And I didn't instigate it. They just knew that I would rather lose money than not honor my word. And if you can be that person, God bless you, because it will pay dividends in the long run. Get outside of yourself. You're here, you're in this class, that's part of it. Challenge yourself, do hard things, set high goal. I love BHAGs. Big, hairy, awesome goals. And then marry well. Otherwise, life's going to suck. And that's all I got to say about that. Question? I know there's not like a subject matter here that, okay, what about this? But are there any questions people would like to ask? Yeah. How to win friends and influence people? How to win friends and influence people. If you're young, if you're like 18 or 17, read that. And if you happen to be LDS, you'll have a much better experience out in the field. I like the book Getting Naked and Don't Google It. It was a great book on being honest. It's a business book. And it's just one, and that's the other thing, just keep reading. I mean, you never learn. I don't know very much. And hopefully one of the reasons I think Alan invited me is you will think, well, if this dork can do it, heck, I could do it for sure. Right? It's absolutely true. Write it down again. By the time I'm fill in the blank, I'm going to be a millionaire. It's capitalism. You find a pain, solve it, people are going to want to do business with you. Other questions? Ma'am. Oh, so the question was, when I said we don't have to be great, we just have to be good, that was because the supplier that we were competing against, they were horrible. During that 6-week outage, they would not return our calls. They never just manned up and said, this is what happened. And they knew when our service went down, it was going to be at least 4 weeks. So just, all we had to do was be good. We didn't even have to be great. Other questions? I live in Spring City with 8 great kids, wonderful wife, bunch of artists, bunch of cowboys, John Stevens. Who else, or what else? Sorry, I'm pointing people out, that's rude. Question? Nope. Question? Yeah, I found, so I've never gone and asked for money, so we're doing the angel investing thing. Everything I've ever done has been organic. We kind of decided we'd stop at $1 million. We wouldn't invest more, and we've already hit that with this. So now we're going out and asking for money. Well, in that process, I found that the whole angel process, it's a bunch of wusses, excuse me. Hey, if they're watching, sorry. But they want everything guaranteed that this is going to work. And I understand that they worked hard for their money too, but sometimes you have to make a decision. And in the short interim, what I found is several people have come to me and said, hey, I've got this idea. Could you help me commercialize it? And we've got a medical Durabond competitor. It's a medical glue that we're just in the process of launching. And then there's 2 other folks that their patents aren't out yet, so I can't tell you about those. But I'm not actually the inventor or anything there. It's just kind of great business opportunities. Oh, so okay, Josh is now going like this, because let me tell you a story. So this is my son-in-law. He makes more money than me because he's doing that door-to-door thing. He sells for Vivint. And that is, seriously, if you want to do a hard thing, it's a hard thing, but hard things will pay dividends. If you want a business card, he's the guy to talk to, because Vivint today is what insulation was back when I was a kid. And he's good at it, too. He won't leave you hanging like we had to hang when I was doing insulation. Anybody else? Question? Yeah. She said, what's the hardest thing I've ever had to do? The hardest thing I ever had to do was be broke. It challenged my manhood. I felt like a failure. And it was almost like a voluntary broke, because I was chasing a dream, but it wasn't working. And but it was good. It made me who I am. And it was hard. 7 years. We always say, biblically speaking, our lives, my wife and I's lives, were like Joseph in Egypt in reverse, because we had 7 years of famine before we had 7 years of feast. And so plan on that. Maybe not 7 years, but it's hard, but it's worth it. Capitalism is a long-term gig. And if you think about it this way, if you're always getting paid for something you're doing, that isn't the real reward for capitalism. Capitalism is that you work hard and then down the road, there's this pot of gold. And I can tell you, long distance was a pot of gold. This AERIS product's going to be a pot of gold, and it's going to create wealth for probably some people here, for jobs, and for people who also sacrifice and become part of the team. So anyway, thanks for the hard question. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dale. We appreciate it. That was an excellent way to end our semester of entrepreneurship seminar presentations, and it inspired, and I hope that all of you will take his advice and act on it. Thank you again for being here.